Welcome. I get the privilege of doing the afternoon session. I'm Brad. I'm blue collar, I do the hands-on. He's white collar, he does the lecture. Right? You like that. So what we've got here is, if you would, a building structure, right? This is a typical historic building structure that you might see out there in San Francisco, and we've got a lot of spalling going on. So in the first group, what we did was we installed galvanic anode. Do we have one that's not installed anywhere laying around?
Yeah, you got go there.
Go in your box. Okay. Yeah. And the idea behind installing the sacrificial anodes, right, is to protect the area outside the patch, right? Remember in our discussions this morning? And inside this thin mortar shell, which allows is a piece of zinc, which stays active when it's in this mortar shell, and that's the reason for it. So this zinc, right, is going to protect what we refer to as the ring halo effect, okay? Because we know that within the patch we're good, right? We cleaned it all up, we've got the rebar coated with a corrosion inhibitor right here, this gray material, and we've got a great patch material going in, so patch is going to be there a long time. But what we see and have learned is that outside the patch area where there's still existing bar that is getting exposed and continuing to corrode becomes a problem. So we add this new technology, corrosion management by inserting in the patch these sacrificial anodes. Does that make sense? And we have in the tables the spacing required and the amount you need based on the size of the bar, steel density. So are we going to go ahead and actually install that form and pour?
Were we able to get it installed?
They were able to get the form installed, but
okay.
If you guys want, what we can maybe do is move over to here and just do a little bit of hand patching.
Yeah.
Okay. And then while they're installing the form, then we can come back once that's done.
Great. So this was set up for form and pour, very fluid material. So we'll move over to the hand apply, but I just really want you to look at all these things again. We pack around the anodes what we refer to as an embedding mortar. And that's just to make sure we have a good connection so that when the electrons flow, right, from the zinc to protect the steel, hydroxyl ions are released, and you have to have a complete circuit. And the embedding mortar allows for that to happen. And so we do that first before we go ahead and button up our form and pour the mortar into it. This gray material, again, is the corrosion inhibitor and / bonding agent. And that is to help us make sure that we properly wetted out the concrete that's roughened, right? We have to have a roughened surface in order for the patch mortar to engage itself and stay attached. It's not just a chemical bond, but it's a mechanical bond as well. And if you remember in some of those early slides that Tim presented following the ICR guidelines and having the proper surface profile. And so that's what we did to this point. And we'll go ahead and form that up when we're ready to set the form.
Yeah, and then maybe quickly before we do move over there, just to show you how these things are installed. It's pretty basic and simple, but normally John had they had already coated this, right? But the normal sequence is that we'd install these first and then coat, because this will actually insulate the connection if we do that. So actually yesterday when I was here, I just chipped out some of the coating so that, installing this, basically, we just get that in there, and really, what we're trying to do again is it's not so much this steel we're concerned about, it's the steel that's here, just outside this patch, right? So that's the ring halo effect. And, we'll just basically, you can use pliers, but, you just usually do something like that, kind of a double wrap, and then just twist that a couple of times and bend that out of place, and then
does it make any difference? Because I see we're doing it on corners, right? What if it's like in the area, kind of like in the middle? Is that going to make any difference on the size of?
The main thing is we want to try to get these things about an inch or so from the outside of your patch, because we're trying to throw some current actually outside the patch. So you don't want to put this in the center of the patch, right? Because all of that area in the center is already going to be with low, no chloride, high pH, and the steel's protected. So, we might install one here. Usually these will go on like maybe 2 feet on center, kind of the typical range. But if you had a big area here, you would basically put these around the perimeter of the patch, not in the middle. Okay. So once that's installed, the next step is you then pack it with a mortar like this, which is a low resistant mortar. That's our Sika Repair 223. That allows an easy path of the hydroxyl actually from parent concrete back to the anode to sustain that reaction. And then the material that we'll actually place is this 211, which is it's a pre-bag. We call it a concrete, but it's got like 3/8 inch aggregate, and it'll be a real, the slump on this actually. This is the SCC or the 211? Yeah. They actually measure this by spread, right? And I forget, what would the spread be? Is it about, it's about 12 inches. So, the slump, if you measured slump, which you really can't with this, would be like an 11-inch slump, right? So you run a different type of test, you measure the flow that has a self-consolidating concrete admixture in it. So I guess, John, maybe while you're putting the form in place, we'll talk a little bit about this one over here.
Two hands on. Okay. So here, what we've done is chipped out and prepared to a CSP, say, this looks like about a 7 or 8, a nice rough surface. And again, the reason behind that is so that you get good mechanical interlock. And even though this is large, it's not very deep. So when you're deciding which material to specify or applicate or which material to use, oftentimes it's how deep you have to go. And this is a great candidate because it being so shallow for hand applied. That one, very deep, very large, form and pour, right? So what we're going to go ahead and do is, now that it's all prepped out, and you've got a nice geometric shape per ICR guidelines, and you've got an edge. There's no feather edging. We always require, the industry requires that you pre-moisten the surface, right? That's called saturated surface dry SSD. And you want to do this as many times as necessary to make sure that the concrete stays moist. And you know why that's important?
Draw it out. It will be easier also to work.
Well, it does help you when you do your scrub coat, but also if the concrete is SSD, saturated first, it's not going to pull the moisture out of the product. And if that happens, then the product will dry out and potentially could crack. So we want to make sure that the concrete's fully moistened so that doesn't happen. So Eddie, where are you? You're my partner in this. Don't get too far away from me. I need you. Because he's got all the gear, the respirator and all that. There's a little bit of dust that is generated. Eddie's volunteered to help us, and he's going to mix the product. This is a vertical overhead material, so its ability is perfect for what we're going to do here. Horizontal use, application up to 3 inches on a vertical face in one lift, 2 inches overhead, so it's a great hand applied. Single component, polymer modified, you mix with water. And normally in the field, they'll just take the full bag and mix it with the full gallon of water, and they'll come up with the right ratio. But we're batching this down. It's not as big an area. It won't take a whole bag. And Eddie, who's been doing this forever, knows how to make that consistency. And the question was asked by the previous group, well, how do we know, if you're doing this batching down? Well, the beauty is in a vertical face, it's impossible to over wet the material because it won't hang, right? Does that make sense? So, we ask that you use the products as they come, bag and a jug. But if you're going to batch them down, then just cut the amount of water to equal the amount of powder. And the little test is there. Litmus test is that it won't hang if it's too wet. Well, we could. That's a good point. Over there, I was talking about Armitech. Armitech 110 is not only a corrosion inhibitor when you have exposed bar, but it's also a bonding agent. if you don't use Armatech, then you have to take that mortar and you have to scrub it in. I believe we have some mixed Armatech, and it would be nice for you to just get the feel for what Armatech is. But, see how dry this block is? If it's this dry, you might have to come in early and flood the area and get it so that it doesn't keep drying out. And I've seen that happen on some job sites.
One thing you do want to watch for is this glistening water, saturated surface dry. We're installing it. That's one thing we're waiting for. We want it to be what is it can without that glistening.
So this is the offset 110. There's a brush in there. You got gloves on. What you're going to do is brush in the substrate. And the reason this is important is that you've got such a rough profile. You don't scrub in the bonding agent or the repair mortar. It'll bridge over the surface and you won't get good intimate contact. See how you're working that in?
It's especially critical to get the edge. Because in this case, the edge is a little bit smooth.
Surface around the perimeter, and she says that's very true. From now on, I'll spec what you go through and sandblast the edges.
Oh, great.
I'm like, oh.
John,
Be careful what you say.
Exactly.
John, I'm gonna remind contractors as they scream at me for that statement in the sky.
Yeah, no, nothing to mention any names.
I'll give him the phone.
That's some ideal world type stuff.
That will spray in the lab.
I mean, if I were doing it at my house, I'd make it like that. But
Yeah, if I got one patch to do, we'll just
I had nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And basically, the concept behind this, whether it's this material or the repair material, is to scrub that into the substrate to get good intimate contact.
It
Tastes better than it smells.
So it almost works like the waterproofing membrane, right? I mean, the way we're applying it, or it has to be a little bit more packed and it would be more. I mean,
It's not a waterproofing membrane per
it
se.
almost.
The consistency?
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, even though it may appear like it's impervious,
Yeah.
Epicem is breathable. And, but the technique, yes, the technique is because you want to really wet out everything. And you want to fill all the little cavities, yes. Application similar.
Can I give it a try? I think we all got it.
We got it.
Cameraman?
How thick can you go with the VOH?
3 inches.
About 3 inches vertically,
3
right?
inches. You want to try it? 3 inches. See if I can, if you make a liar out of me,
Hey, you want some a bigger job too?
you got to scrub it in.
Yeah. You can just scrub in the VOH.
Just do it on the Armatech, that's
Or spray it
It doesn't matter.
in a hopper. You could actually
So
spray
here's
it.
the other technique to scrub, coach, is to
Yeah.
just take this material. Some guys like to water this down for the scrub coat. I never recommend that.
Because the surface is already wet.
Yeah.
So you automatically.
I don't want to overwater that, especially if I'm relying on that for my bond.
Yeah.
And now I got a high water cement ratio of material at that point. I take the material as
See,
mixed.
this is a professional. See how he uses his hands as opposed to a tool, and they hammer it in with their palm, the heel of their palm, because he knows how to force it and make it, like building blocks. You start at the bottom and you work your way up, right? When I do it, it falls right out. Can you emulate that?
Brad's only been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Still has trouble with it.
I usually don't try to get my hands dirty.
I cook pizza once in a while, so it's probably doing something good.
I leave that for my wife. She's actually pretty good at this, too.
I feel like I'm
Yeah.
You're gonna edit all that. All my
We're
jobs.
going to put it on the internet
But
tonight.
I mean, cut out all the jobs.
Then there won't be anything left.
Say that fun? Yeah. And we get paid to do that.
It's like playing with
So we're
silly.
doing that 8 hours a day.
What is that?
5 days a week.
Yeah.
What is
6
that?
days.
It comes in a can.
Silly putty?
Is that a silly putty?
Yeah.
Play-Doh. Play-Doh.
think it's easy.
It's like Play-Doh.
In a pass like this, you could just do all in one piece.
Yep,
Wouldn't have to
you
share
can.
it.
No, you could. Again, with this, there's so many different materials available. But see that writing right there? SikaQuick VOH. It's a quick setting, vertical overhead. And, you know, gosh, there's so many products, so many different mortars within the product group. But if you're going to try to do a high lift, and you want to do this whole thing.
Oh, come on. Look.
Just remember to scrub that in, right?
Yeah.
It's always, it's an important step and oftentimes
Overlooked.
We like to work to an edge too. Instead of pulling your material away from the existing perimeter, working forward, so you're not pulling your wet mud away from that concrete. And then depending on your textures, a lot of times we'll come in and we'll build it up a little high, let it take its initial set, so it turns, and then we'll shave it down. And it's a lot like auto body filler, where you can kind of go down and use your existing surface to work off of when you're shaving, so you know you're never shaving it too low.
We'll just leave it like that and then come back and shave it. Let it set for a while.
And set on this 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes.
Sure.
And then if the superintendent's on the job, he walks up and says, "Is this wet?" It's like caulking that. It's like a magnet. You can't help but touch it, right?
Exactly.
Well,
All right.
I think we were able to actually install the form, Derek.
Okay, so we're going to move over to the Form and 4 section.
How we doing?
Okay, so this was all precisely measured out. We had a calibrated pail of water and an exact amount of powder, so we should get a real good.
Who wants to dump and pour? Lift and dump. This is a very exciting process. There's
Who
a
wants
lot
to use
of,
the hammer?
there's a lot of technicality to this. You need to grab it with your left hand, yeah, and help it to shoot.
Don't drop it, Dave.
Okay, looks good.
Hey, Brad, are you ready?
And we talked about what this product has in it. It has a super plasticizer called Viscocrete, so it's very, very fluid. 100% slump, right? Measured by flow.
I mean, yeah, you're really
You ever seen one of these?
you're going to measure the spread.
Spread.
You're gonna take that, you're gonna tap on the form and kind of settle our mud around our rebar.
After he's done?
Yep. Pretty hard, huh?
It held.
Just give it a couple of taps there down on each side. Filled up to about.
No, it's up there.
Is it?
Yeah.
You can hear the hollow one.
Yeah, you should be able to hear it.
It's going down though.
Here.
He hits.
If you watch, you'll see it. Not so much with a hammer. Be careful about over vibrating. If you can lose your form, you can oversize it out.
Usually just a couple of taps.
Yeah, you're in good shape right there. Honestly, on a pack like that, you could probably pour it and not tap it.
Oh,
It's probably
it's almost
bad
over there.
general practice, you know, if you hold it on, because you've got migraines. Where you might see it, where it would be
John likes to do
knees. New concrete, you might get a little bit of space there. If you tap on it a couple times, you'll be pretty certain.
So John, you'll bring this up pretty much all the way up to the top here.
Yeah.
And then you've got this little section of the bird bath.
That we'll just chip off.
You have to remove later.
That's right. So it'll come out onto the bird's beak a little bit in order to get it high enough up. Typically, on this one, we'll pour it up to this line right here. This would be something like a reveal, an architectural reveal.
Oh, okay.
So we'll pour it up to there. But yes, it will come up here, and then we'll just chip that over. You want to? Do you have a Have you linked it with your
Latex car?
Yeah.
No, not really. There's no need to do that. There's already polymer in there, so you would not.
There'd be no cause to ever do
You
it.
have no need to do that.
So this one right here, you see this reveal?
Yeah.
You try to get it poured up. It's going to come out here on the bird's beak. That's fine.
Right.
Look at the consistency in that pour.
It looks pretty good.
Mr. Collier.
Close.
It's a high fluid material that self-compacting fixtures.
Pretty close. Boom, that goes up.
And that should be sufficient to get it vibrated into place.
No, you could even go up a little higher. You can see that way. All we do is chip off that little piece at
Oh,
the
okay.
end.
I see.
Okay, and then if you had to, you can hand pack the last piece
Yeah.
just to finish that
If
off.
this reveal wasn't here, we'd take our bird's beak up a little higher, and we'd just pour right up here, and then it would run our material all the way up.
Okay.
And then you have just a little piece that you chip off. One of the things you want to do though is try to catch that by the next day, because you wait 2 or 3 days later and you've got some really hard concrete that you're trying to chip that little piece off.
You may damage the
And then
actual
you do a little bit of
You
patching.
probably will. Yeah, and then you just finish it off.
Yeah. So it's kind of a trade-off. I think at the end this is much faster for that type of a repair because it's deeper versus trying to do it.
Sure.
But what we try to do is put the different tools there, and then John and his crew working with Brad, they'll figure out what's the best method of placement, and then we'll recommend the products for that.
I've been working with these materials. Well, not this particular one, but the Sika bag materials since the 80s, and I still bring Brad in on almost every job. If it's not exactly the same project, we'll bring him in and just get his eyes on it, and we'll work out a means and method that I want the manufacturers buying into anything I'm doing anyway, right?